Okay.
just in time.
Just in time.
So yes, a whole what I see in organizations, certainly big organizations, is people earnestly doing their jobs to the best of their abilities and not having a clue why they're doing that and how that fits into the overall aim of the organization, which makes it tough for them to make things better and to get any joy and pride out of their work because they don't grasp what they're doing helps. Here at Rocketdyne, we managed to have some real spectacular visions of what we can do when they launch a rocket and it takes off and goes. But a whole bunch of people don't recognize how what they're doing is contributing to that. And there's not enough effort put forth to help people understand that when you write this report every month and send it over there, that helps those people make decisions that allow us to build hardware that allow us to launch things that don't explode. So we're not very good at using the wonderful vehicle we have of a launch to help people understand how they contributed to that and pat them on the back and say, thanks for doing what you do every day. We're running around looking for heroes instead of running around patting people on the back every day for doing what they do.
I
Yeah.
was I chatted with somebody from Cosworth Engineering in the UK, and they used to build Formula One engines. Not sure they still do, but they're still automotive engine builders. And I said to the guy I was speaking to, do you ever send some of the guys from the manufacturing shop floor to a Formula One Grand Prix to see what they've done to help create? Oh no, why would we do that? I said,
Yep.
well, they need to see, the real stuff going on. It's sad. It's sad.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like what I saw in one of the companies where they were looking out for a data entry operator, right? So the HR person puts an ad in the papers, wanted data entry operator with some basic skills, RDB, MS, blah, 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 blah. And then she gets resumes, sifts through them, and selects one candidate and sends them out of the shop floor. And then uh, he's told you need to enter this data in, and he does a great job of that every single day, every single day. 6 months down the line, one day he's doing his job, and the guy wearing a suit, etc., walks into the materials department and sees him there and says, "Oh, you look like a new guy here." He says, "Yes, I am." So when did you join the company? He says, I joined in 6 months ago. And what do you do here? So he says, I enter data. Good, great, keep it up. Now he's drawing a salary of X amount of money, and the very next day he gets offered a salary, you know, say 30 or 40% higher, and he just goes. Why not? A better, he's getting paid to do the same thing, and he's getting much better money. But now let's go backwards. If the person knows purpose, why, how this changes. Same situation. Kid has joined the company, working 6 months down the line. Guy in a suit comes in and says, "Okay, you're a new kid here. What are you doing here? I enter data. But do you know what's done with your data?" I have no clue. Come with me. He takes him to the production planning and control department, PPC. And now this kid sees, wow, some guys there are making some other tables, another guy is drawing a graph, and he says, wow, I'm an important guy here, right? And so the next day onwards, he starts visiting that department 10 minutes a day. And then one day he sees, oh, this guy can draw, I can draw that graph. Why does he draw it? So that morning he draws the graph and sends it across as a part of the report. And those guys come over and say, you're doing a great job. Why don't you join us there and enter data in one of the computers there itself? Work with us. Now, a month down the line, he's offered a job in another company, maybe twice the salary. And he says no.
Yep. People can jump jobs for salary, but if they understand how they fit in where they are, it's going to have to be a really huge jump in the salary for them to move out.
Yeah, so purpose, I think Dr. Deming intended, okay, the broadest sense that for a company, but I also think he intended it to be for people, for every step in the process, for different departments. And I feel that this particular way, the first waste that he's pointed out as like a double-edged sword, as it goes both ways, right? In the broadest sense, it expands into the entire organization. And in the narrow sense, why am I doing this? So that's and of course some of the other things that he's listed here, quarterly reports required, etc., etc. No number of successes in the short-term problems will ensure long-term success. So we need to stamp out fires. Short-term solutions have long-term effects, and that's why he often said cause and effect are not closely related
Yeah.
in either time or space. You could do something now, you get to see the effect much later in a different part of the company or maybe somewhere else. And of course, management must work on short-term problems as they turn up. He recognized that, but it's fatal to work exclusively on short-term problems, right? So he knew where to stop, correct? He knew where to draw the line. So that was the first
I also
waste.
like, that the title of the chapter is The Heavy Losses. And he talks about how we establish numerical goals for people that are beyond the means of the system to achieve. And then the people certainly don't feel good about not being able to achieve these goals, not recognizing that it's not their fault that they can't achieve the goals. The goals aren't realistic considering what the system's got. And so, over and over again in this chapter and elsewhere, he talks about the goal doesn't do anything, it's the method. His famous question was always, by what method?
Method.
By what method? Because the thing that causes the result is what you do, which is the method, not the goal. Your goal could be to win the World Cup. But while that's a fascinating goal, what you do is going to determine whether or not you win. The goal doesn't do that.
Yeah, in
And
fact, in one of the chats, I saw someone say that I was enjoying my job and someone distracted me with a numerical goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
I missed it. You enjoy your job? What?
But I was distracted. Someone distracted me with a numerical goal.
Oh. Yeah.
And to follow on, the numerical goals are just, in my mind, just arbitrary targets. And without looking at the system and understanding what the current performance is, you're never going to achieve that target. Now, we know that some salesmen and women do that, but they destroy the system in order to get there. And, it's just, they're not seeing the big picture. They're in a very narrow mindset and a very narrow view of how things work. They're not looking at the big picture.
Yeah,
Well,
he
yeah.
used it.
And Deming has a line, I don't remember reading it, so I must have heard it from either Gypsy or Peter Schultes or somebody. It says, when somebody's given an opportunity to achieve a goal, or given a goal to achieve, the harder they're pushed to achieve that, the more likely they are to either distort the system or distort the data or just flat out lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Brian Joyner. Distort the system, distort the data, distort both.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Also, I think that goes along with it a lot of times is putting those goals into a particular month, right? Okay, for this month,
Yeah.
we've got to meet this goal. And so you get a lot of arbitrary shove it in, shove it back, shove it forward. How about this, just to meet those goals. So yeah.
Yeah, manipulation. Yeah.
Yep.
Deming points out in this chapter some of the difficulties with the way we run companies that are on the stock market. If you've got a company with stock, you got to report every quarter what's going on and why it's different from the last quarter, which makes your long-term view rather short. And it's a crazy system. I remember years ago, more than 15, maybe closer to 25. The Rocketdyne had a division that was called Space and Communications, of which I was a part. And the head honcho for Space and Communication every month would send out something, or maybe it was every quarter, send out something that said, here's our profit, here's our margin, here's our income, etc. And every time it would go up, he'd explain why it went up. And every time it went down, he'd explain why it went down. So I plotted like 24 quarters worth of data and found it's an absolutely stable system. But every quarter he had to explain why it was up or down from the previous quarter.
Yeah. And that drives action too. I mean, I'm working through the monthly financials right now to report to the ownership group. And if they see something, scrap, what's going on with the scrap percent of sales, which may be sales, but hey, you got to do something about that. So it definitely drives action.
Yes. And the short-term thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's not that he was against targets, he was against arbitrary targets. I remember saying that there's some things called facts of life.
Yes.
Right. If we don't generate so much of revenue, we'll sink. Well, that's not an arbitrary target. That's a fact of life.
Yes.
So I guess he was not. But then he also said that when you calculate that, when you compute that, then like you just hammered it in that by what method, right? So make this quarter look good, defer till the next quarter, the repairs, maintenance, and orders, etc., etc. So yeah, that was the first big waste. The second waste he's pointed out here is ranking people.
Talk about a loss.
Ranking sales with teams, divisions, reward at the top, the so-called merit system.
You create a lot of competition, not much, and a lot of upset people. Even the ones that do well tend to get upset, and the ones that are not doing so well. I remember a secretary worked for the VP of Quality, and I was in her office one day, and she's usually an upbeat person, and she was looking very down and upset. And I said, "Barbara, what? You don't seem yourself today. What's up?" And she says, "I hate this time of year." And I said, "What do you mean this time of year?" So she said, it's admin of the year day. So they're celebrating by crowning somebody the best secretary in the organization. And I told her, yeah, I can understand how that might not make you feel so great. I said, all I can offer you is that they're not trying to make you feel bad. And she said, it doesn't matter. It hurts anyway.
Yeah. Using these terms as people at the top, people at the bottom, no matter what measure or what method you adopt to measure, you will have the average, and 50% of them will lie below the average. That's what average means. If you remember what he read out at one of the 4-day seminars in England with a newspaper, which had headlines, which went like this: 49% of children in this country are below the average nutrition level.
And what are you going to do about it?
Well, hi, Dick. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. You guys, sorry I'm late. The first Wednesday of the month is a lunch with a whole bunch of guys. So I moved it ahead of a half an hour, but back with you. Nice seeing you guys too.
Good to see you, Dick.
But I'm on the side of the road too.
That yeah, we love to see that. We first thought it was a background, but it doesn't
Yeah.
look like Oh wow,
So a nice shady spot.
nice.
That's the best seat.
Yeah, best seat in the house.
We
So
had a
yeah,
situation. We had a situation that came up this last week at a board meeting. We're contemplating putting on an addition to our building. Well, actually, a new building, and we were going through who's going to get what, and everybody in the meeting, and everybody was a lot of different groups involved. All were concentrated on what's best for the company. It was, and I made a comment at the time. I said, think if we had a meritocracy program, how different that meeting would have been. I mean, this stuff is real.
Yes. And something that prevailing style of management doesn't grasp is how destructive and how costly it is to have all that competition going on.
But think if they got an experience like what I got, last Thursday, and how you're working towards a common goal.
Yes.
It wouldn't take. I can't believe it take too many of those where the guys, hey, maybe we ought to do something else.
Yeah, it's intriguing how willing people are to commit a lot of time and energy to something that they believe they're able to make a difference by doing. And
Yeah.
You see it in self-organized teams of 20 or 30 or even more people who are trying to make something done in their local communities, and they are so committed to what they do. And you send them, offering them goals would not be of any value at all.
No.
People want to make a difference. That's part of who they are.
Yeah.
And we don't tap into that at all in the Catholic style of management.
No, that's a good point. I like that because you often think of those people having a shared purpose. So that comes right back down to his purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and exactly. I mean, the next of the losses are basically extensions of the same. He talks about incentive pay, failure to manage the organization as a system. People are competing with each other and crushes just about everything. MBO, the way it's practiced, not the way it was laid out by Peter Drucker. And in fact, even Drucker and he said that the objectives are almost always interdependent. They do not exist in isolation, right?
Yes.
And if you read even Duran's work, he has mentioned, because Drucker and Duran apparently used to give lectures together, right? The auspices of the American Management Association. And Duran too said, you cannot have this. It destroys the company. And there should be some element of interdependencies that need to come in. So MBO as practiced, beautifully put by Deming as usual, not as envisioned by Drucker. And if you read that book,
There's a tendency hang on to the idea that if we've got something large, the way we address it is break it down into pieces and attack the pieces separately, which is clearly not a systems approach. And you end up with a lot of pieces, but they don't work well together. The systems may even be destroyed, as Deming points out.
Yeah.
How many
There are many. Yeah,
organizations do you guys know that don't have some kind of a performance appraisal system?
All right. I had put my hand up right there. None of the companies where I worked had performance. I threw them out.
You do have a couple of them?
No. The companies I worked in,
Yeah.
I removed performance appraisal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how'd
that go?
Oh, the day we declared that there were celebrations. In fact, let me tell you what happened. You see, when I walked into that company, there was performance appraisal. There was a lady there at HR, and then there was a case. There was a kind of a situation that arose. There was something going wrong, and I drove the point home by drawing a control chart and showed it to her because she was clocking the rejects that were coming out of a process and trying to come out with a reward and punishment scheme, blah, 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 whatever, saying it'll motivate them. And I said, all right. And then I drew a control chart of the defects and showed they all were within limits. And it was the process that was generating the defects, not the people. But before that, of course, I gave her a primer on control charts and she was all ears. And she said, wow, sounds fascinating. And then she asked me the typical question, does your control chart, as though I invented it, take care of the best and the worst workers? And I said, okay, let's do an experiment. And so we did an experiment for a week. And when I showed her the chart, she was flabbergasted. She said, wow. And then we went on to solve the problem. And then when we started discussing, that's when she said, where did you learn all this? And I said, have you read Deming? And then I said, one of the things I took away from his teaching was when something goes wrong, don't blame the person, blame the process. And over a period of 3 months, we were interacting about a lot of other things. And one fine day, she tells me, you know what, Balaji, I think this performance appraisal, excuse my term, is bullshit. You need to drop it. Because from what I gather, from what I've understood, is everything lies within limit. I said, yeah, now you're getting it. So when we declared that day that there'll be there was literally a sense of relief. And I think many of those people went out for dinner that night saying, whoa, don't have performance appraisal anymore. So we came out with something else. And I borrowed this idea from another company where we said we'd sit down and have a long discussion with every single employee. One, stating where we intend to be in the next 2 or 3 years as a company. And second, what we expect from that employee to be a part of this. And then we threw the question at them, what do you expect from us so that you can contribute in some way? And then we created a joint document. And we would not meet once a year. We would meet once a month. And that's why I loved it so much when the Deming Institute brought in from me to we, because we started asking the same question every month. How are we doing? Not how are you doing? How are we doing? And things changed, definitely.
How long ago was that you made the change?
Okay, this was 2003, 4.
So you've been in it 20 years anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I've left that company when I resigned from the company in 2009. So from what I know, I'm in touch with some of the people right there, and they say, no, there's no performance appraisal. It continues to be the system that you set up. Though I'm not there, the lady is not there. She, of course, was much older to me, so she retired. But obviously, the people over there who were around saw merit in this. And so it continues. I'm happy that it continues. So Deming lives.
Yeah.
We'd like it to be more widespread.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a tough one. People resist it. I implement and try to do like a start, stop, continue, start, do more of, stop, do less of, continue doing this, and more of, like you said, a we conversation. Plus, how do you get anywhere once a year, right? It blows my mind that template of once a year. What are you gonna do? So that's yeah. But people resist. They want that year. It's just been embedded in them. So it is a struggle to try to implement that.
So
Yeah,
Balaji,
performance management is not wrong. Performance appraisal is bad.
Right.
Balaji, how big was the company? How many employees when you changed the system of performance management to removing it and coming up with a different process? How big? How many
Yeah,
employees, please?
we had around, I think at that time, little more than 200.
Okay.
Now, of course, it's much, much bigger. It's grown. We were at the tipping point,
Yeah.
and we've exploded ever since. So, but still, they're not there. They're not doing that again. It's just because we've grown so much. So I guess the documents we created there have stood the test of time.
Yeah. When I worked for Motorola, they had a 9-box grid, high performance, high potential, and you had to put so many people in the top box and so many people in the bottom box because you had to meet your quotas, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do that. I only had a team of 5, I think it was. So I said, they're all performing extremely well. So, but I put them all in the top box, and then I was overruled because they had to meet the senior management on site had to meet their quotas for the people in where were Motorola? Was that Schaumburg, Illinois? Schaumburg, Illinois, yeah. When Paul Galvin was running the company.
Yeah, I
And
see my wife go through hell though every year. I think twice a year they have this, and she has to put people into some slot. She said, "I hate doing that. How
yeah,
how can I do that?" And I remember she was one of the projects where there was this kid who'd done some extraordinary work, and so she recommended him for an A grade. All right, and this was when she worked in a company. I think British Telecom, they have the branch in it. It's called Mahindra British Telecom, right? So that's how it is. So uh, her bosses were sitting in England. So when she gave her recommendation for the A grade, and late at night she gets a call from her boss who's sitting in England saying, "How could you recommend this kid for an A grade?" She said, "You know, he's done such a stupendous job. I had to do that." And he said, "Well, your quota for A grades is done for the year."
oh, just mentioning BT, I listened to a webinar from somebody who's worked for BT for 35 years, he just retired. And he said they dropped their Six Sigma process improvement program because AI will solve all their problems.
A new gadget.
And I said, can you just repeat that? And he did. And I thought, it's just ridiculous.
Talking about Six Sigma, one of my students they're on their internship right now. So he suggested an improvement project to the people in the company, and they said they'll execute it. Then they said, how long will it take to execute this? So by his estimate, he said it won't take more than 3 weeks. I can do it right now. I'm here for another month. No, the Six Sigma project has to last for 180 days.
Oh, God.
So you know what he's doing right now? He's
No.
creating a timeline.
I think it's interesting that somebody thought AI is going to give them a new way of doing things, because what AI is going to do is look at all the things we've been doing in the prevailing style and give them to you to continue.
It might come up with 6
Yeah, yeah.
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 Sorry, I keep glancing at my phone because my wife just had her right hip replaced today, and I keep getting messages. So apologies for that.
I
She's
hope
doing
she's
well.
doing well.
Sorry,
I hope she's doing well.
she is. Thank you very much. Yeah, she's okay. Thank you.
So I remember seeing a video in one of the 4-day seminars. Somebody in the audience asked a question of Dr. Deming, since you don't want us to do performance appraisals, what do you want us to do instead? And Deming says, instead, that sounds like you think there's something better. I can't think of a better way to destroy people and their pride in work. Why would you change? It depends on what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, yeah.
Replace one disease with another.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
He could be brutal.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I never met him, but heard so much.
So, what
So
other things in here struck your imagination? Did you, if this is your second or third or, you know, 100th time through the book, did you notice anything new?
you always notice something new. Do not confuse coincidence with cause and effect. But
Yes.
yeah, the gallery furniture example, the facts of life bit, and a picture of a numerical goal. You just keep going back to that again and again, right? How could they know?
The thing that I was reminded of is the Sears fiasco in their automotive department from 1992. He mentions that in here where they gave the auto departments a certain goal they had to achieve. So
Yeah,
to achieve their goals, when cars came in, if there were some work to do, they'd do something to damage the car to make sure there was more work to do. And
right.
somehow it leaked out that was what was going on. Pretty much shut down Sears automotive department.
I like the statement that he put in this chapter about the horizontal production line and how radical it seems to most manufacturing facilities about a self-directed workforce,
Yep.
people doing anything that needs to be done, and you don't. That's not your job. That's so and so's job. It would be very very controversial.
Yes. We had a guy here who was really good at helping people organize and work together. First level manager. So he had about 15, 12 people working for him. And he organized them into a team in a way that he didn't have to manage anymore. But he went to his boss and said, hey, I want to turn these guys into a self-directed work team and I want to move on to something else. Can we do that? And that didn't last more than a year because they were doing really well, but the upper management wanted a belly button they could point at and pick on rather than a group that they had to deal with. And so he managed to get them organized in a self-directed work team, and they were doing very well. But the organization's rubber band snapped back to normal, and they had to put somebody in charge of that group.
Yeah. I found that you a lot of times when you kind of let that happen, the people do what they like, the people do what they're good at. So instead of when you force them into a box, they're not going to do as well because they don't like it or because they may not be good at it, and somebody else could have easily come in and done that piece of it.
Yeah, that's interesting about what you're good at and what you like to do, kind of thing. I remember when I was playing football in high school, my mom says she's a little worried about me getting beat up in football, and she said, "Why don't you play basketball? You're much better at basketball." I said, "Because I like football better." Well, you're better at basketball, so what?
There are more girls in football looking
Yeah.
at it.
I also like in this chapter where he reminds us that no matter how much talent, knowledge, and skill you have, you're you can't overcome a system that sucks. You
Oh,
have
yeah.
to change that system. No amount of you exercising your knowledge and skills is going to change the system.
That's right.
Right. So that's with chapter 2.
Yes, and I think the meeting will let us go on till noon, but I'm not sure we need to go on until noon.
Hey Tim, I had a question though. Oops. Can you hear me? Or am I...
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. There was something in there. Um, I'm trying to on my phone. I'm trying to go back, see where it is. Had something that sounded a lot like, you might have um, good good revenues right now, but if you don't look at the future, you can be in trouble. And it was almost like what we were talking about earlier about the definition of quality,
Yes.
but it was kind of like what he was talking about definition of quality without understanding the future. And I'm looking for that statement, and I'm having trouble finding it. You remember?
There was something I remember where he's talking about when you're discussing things with the employee, asking about
I think it's at the very beginning.
what they want to be doing in 2 years and in 5 years.
Yeah.
Felt like page 1, they brought up that concept.
Yeah, early on,
Early on, page
but
1.
somewhere in here. Yeah, I do like that he's always pushing you to look out into the future.
No, he
Well,
says your
yeah,
short term, the
yeah.
long term, that bit.
But
Failure to
that's
optimize through
when you're
time.
looking out into the future, well, you think about the guys with the carburetors,
Yes.
you know, um, the skill to go from a carburetor to a fuel injector is so different. And then the same thing we talked about Kodak, or I mean, you guys were talking about Kodak last
Yeah.
week, and to um, go into digital photography, nobody has that experience in the company. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you get out of that situation because you know I'm looking at that very situation right now. What what is it going to be like in 10 or 20 years?
Yep.
I he says management's job is prediction, but I don't know how you predict it.
No, you have a theory, right? What if?
Yeah.
You begin with that. What if?
Well, yeah, you do have a theory. No problem about that. But
Yeah.
you know,
So what if? Well, I mean, when you say here, what if, like what happened during the pandemic? What if we're not going to leave our home? Then what are we going to do? Okay, then we need to do something on the internet, online, right? And so we have to find another. So what's our purpose? What are we trying to do here? Like when we were running the university, we did the same thing. We said, what are we going to do? Are we going to we take the lectures online, but how are we going to do things? Are we going to do the things the way we did it when we were in person? And so we started in the same mold where we started having an induction with the children, and then suddenly the whole induction program was canceled, and they said, let's begin with classes because it's not going the same way. But it all started with, if you know what I'm trying to say here, we have to start somewhere. So if we say here, okay, what if somebody else can do this, or what if this can be done faster, or what if this can be done better by someone like the AI bit? Okay, but then where do we fit in?
Yeah.
And
I think when you hear different ideas, you have to embrace them, and that's hard if that's not what the company's already doing. And so the company has to be willing. Somebody within the company, with some power, has to be willing to reach out and recruit a little bit, and then invest in that. So it's almost becomes your little research department in that area, which is very foreign to what the company's doing, but you have to. But it's not human nature. We don't if we're having success doing what we're doing or the way we are, it's not human nature to want to change. So it's like what you have to do is it's foreign to what you want to do.
Well,
yeah, there's
Plus, it
one
costs
thing which
money.
yeah.
look at Kodak. Kodak made, I'm told, the first digital camera.
Yep. Didn't think it was a camera though.
Yeah, and it was right in line with their mission, all that stuff. But that's what makes this so difficult. I think
Yes.
you don't even know what you're missing. You don't know what direction you're even going. Even they had a very good mission statement and all that stuff, and you still miss it.
I think what the difference between an invention and an innovation, they're not the same,
Yeah.
right? So what would be because Dr. Deming sort of he mixes up these two terms. He uses them interchangeably. Invention and innovation.
Well, go back to the Kodak thing.
Yep.
The digital
Right.
camera was an invention.
Perfect. Now, what's an innovation?
Developing
Going
it.
from 35 millimeter slides to 40.
No. Innovation is finding a new use for something that already exists. Using it differently is innovation, right?
Yeah.
So invention does not come from the customer. Invention comes from the company. The customer does not know what he wants till you show it to him, right?
Right.
But the customer is a rapid learner. Once you show him what you've got, the customer tells you how to use it differently and how to make it better. So improvement and innovation always come from the market. Invention comes from the company. I think that's where they missed out. Like with the iPhone, what was the change? That there was no physical keyboard. All right. So they made everything that you tap it on the screen. Great. Now, what did we do as the customer when we were shown that? We said, wait, you told me that there's no physical keyboard? Then why do I even need to lift my finger from the screen? Why don't I swipe? That did not come from Apple. That came from us.
Can you elaborate on that? I
Okay,
don't
I'll
have the
say it again.
background on that.
Yeah. So Apple comes up with this idea of no physical keyboard on the phone, right? The keyboard comes up when you need it and disappears when you don't need it. And Steve Jobs very proudly announced it that we patented it, we invented it. Okay, great. But when we were given that in our hands, the customer, we came up with something else. We said, okay, if there's no physical keyboard, then why do I need to lift my finger off the screen? Why don't I swipe across? You know what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah.
That did not come from the company. That came from the customer. So we customers are excellent in telling you how to make this better and how to use it differently. So invention comes from the company, but improvement and innovation always come from the customer. So Kodak might have invented the digital camera, but they did not see what else a customer does with a digital camera, right? Or did they do that? Did they have any mechanism? They thought that they just sat back and said, we've done it all. And I think the difference is where you keep your eye on the market and you keep seeing how people use it differently. And that's when things start changing.
Yeah.
And that's why failure, you have to accept failure, right? Because you're not, don't have that customer feedback in the beginning. Right. So you're going to try 10 things and maybe one will work in terms of invention. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And then, of course, yeah. But the invention, sometimes the customer, like Henry Ford said that, right? If I did market research, if I asked the customer what he wanted, he'd have told me, I want a faster horse. I gave him a car, right? But then how did they use the car? They said, okay, wait, not just for transporting here and there. Then they said, let's make an ambulance, and let's make it to do this, and let's make it do that. So that those ideas came from the market, if you know what I'm trying to say here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and certainly when you're looking out in the future and say, what business do we want to be in 2 years and 5 years and 10 years, you're going to be operating out of some sort of theory, and you have to be willing to look at your theory, certainly at least every year, to see if that still holds true, whether something has changed or whether you see something different, or whether your customers have offered you something that might show you that the future lies over in this direction rather than the direction you were thinking you were going to head.
Yeah.
You guys did that, Dick. You guys did that at Peaker, though, because you were looking at getting into carburation and a whole bunch of other things.
But I think at some point it's going to be physically impossible to see that future.
Absolutely. What you need to do is decide what you want it to be and see if you can bring it into being.
Too many unknowns.
Yeah.
Too many unknowns, but we can always try.
Oh yeah, no, and people do, and fail, and businesses go out of business.
You can try on a small enough scale that it doesn't wipe your business out.
Say that again.
You can think about what you might want to do and then do it on a small scale and see what the results are.
Oh, sure. You got all these, ideas that Deming gives us to gain knowledge about all this stuff.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I don't throw stones at companies that have just gone out of business sometimes, doing all the right things. And he talks about that, doing all the right things and still go out of business. And that's where that comment was.
Oh, he said, yeah, he says that if you do all these things and enjoy good luck, you're going to continue in business.
And if you enjoy good luck, right.
I mean, somebody else did something better. Couldn't it have been that? They may not have done something wrong.
Right.
Yep.
But somebody did something better.
Somebody did something better, and they're gonna grab different. The market. Yeah.
Or different.
What's that?
Or different.
Yeah, different, whatever.
And that's why when he describes that shoe heart cycle in Out of the Crisis, this is really important. I mean, people forget to read what he's written here. Take action to accomplish the transformation. I keep pushing this. The reason to study the results of a change is to try to learn how to improve tomorrow's product or next year's crop. Planning requires prediction. The results of a change or test may enhance our degree of belief for prediction and for planning. Step 4 of the shoe heart cycle, study the results. What did we learn from the change? Will lead to improvement of any stage, better satisfaction of the customer for that stage. The results may, of course, indicate no change at all, at least for now. If the results of a change or a test are favorable, we may decide to go through the cycle again, preferably under different environmental conditions, to learn whether the favorable results of the first cycle were spurious or are valid over a range of environmental conditions. Don't confuse success with success, he said.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. To me, all of Deming's messages come down to learning something.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Making it more efficient to learn, for instance. But what I'm saying is, I don't know if a human being can do that 100% of the time.
Well,
you
can always try, like you said.
much better chances following what Deming was talking about.
Yeah,
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but it only improves your chances significantly.
Well, and that's what you end up looking at is I can do this or I can do that. Which one? What information do I have that leads me that this one's going to be better than that one? And
Yeah,
you can
the
see the
information I
results.
need is what's the third one that I don't know about.
Well, yeah, and even the marketplace enters into that, and Betamax and VHS, the little cabaret ad is an
The typical
example.
example, yes.
They both came up with something rather unique and interesting, but one of them took the market and the other one sort of died off.
Yeah, but
They
why
do.
did they die off? They decided not to work with the others.
Well, yeah, you could argue that
I don't know
some of
why
their
they.
policies for sharing and licensing and all that were problematic.
Yeah.
I think the most problematic thing was the limited time that you could record. I think nothing longer than 60 minutes,
Mm,
which if you want to record a movie is going to be a problem.
that's right.
Just have to have two machines.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Well,
I gotta see if I can't find that statement that I was mentioning, and
yeah, bring it up next week if you can.
yeah.
What was that statement you said?
I can't recall, but it was remember last week when you guys were talking about quality, and it was Deming's definition of quality, which I
Right.
disagree with, but other than that, it was using similar words in this chapter, and that's what I have to go back and find. Sustainable was one of the words I think in this quote too.
Yeah, he says a product or a service possesses quality
Yeah.
if it helps someone live better in every way and enjoys a large and sustainable market.
Yeah, but that was in chapter one.
That's right.
This was using the term sustainability in a slightly different context in chapter two,
Okay.
and that's what I'm quite sure it was sustainability. To me, it goes back to his statement is the result of quality, not the definition of quality.
Yeah. I'll take a look. I've got an electronic version that I can search.
Yeah, I'm on the electronic version,
Okay.
but it's pretty small in my phone.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to
Righto.
try. I think next week we're looking at chapter 3,
Yes.
which is
The system of profound knowledge.
no, it's a introduction to
System, sorry.
system.
Introduction to a system.
And
Yeah.
we get introduced to a system, and although he doesn't say it specifically, what we might conclude is every system is a subsystem.
Okay, and I have another word for that because
I think
people often, when he came up with profound knowledge, I think he caught many of the so-called experts napping. So the experts of the other field obviously felt they had to say something that he's missed out. And so they say he's confusing between system, subsystem, process. They're not the same. All he said was connectedness.
Yeah,
Everything's connected. That's it.
everything's
Your scale
yeah,
depends on what your object under study is. So you decide where you want to stop. But
yeah.
that's why he said the aim and purpose, etc. So
The interesting thing is the boundary of any system is in your head. It's not.
exactly.
It's not in the reality.
Right.
Nature, and the universe doesn't have boundaries. There's just stuff there. And some of the stuff might be related more closely than others, but there isn't a boundary. The
Yeah,
boundaries
it
are
depends
in
on where you
our
are,
heads.
right?
We invent the boundary. And the good news about that is if you want to study a system, you can set the boundary. And as Deming points out, the larger the boundary, the larger the system, the more difficult it is to manage. So you want to set your boundary in a way that doesn't disallow you from being able to manage it. And you need to
Yeah.
change the boundary whenever that is appropriate.
Like the city of Los Angeles.
Yes. And the great news about changing the boundary is it's nothing physical. It's a mental thing.
That's right. And that's why I think people misunderstood his understanding variation. It's not so much about the control chart, it's about when to stop.
Yes. Yes.
If you keep increasing the boundaries, and it becomes more difficult, when you get boundaries that are huge, is there some point where you physically can't do that anymore?
Well, yeah, but that's why he said you need to cooperate and you can't do it alone.
True. Still, you
So,
cooperate like crazy, and you still get too big.
oh yeah. So then you decide that this is it.
Yeah.
I mean, is it going to affect me? Is it becoming unpredictable? Then you increase the boundary. You say it's still predictable. I can predict what's happening, and I'm pretty. Although I may or may not be able to do anything about it, but at least
Yeah.
I know what's going to happen. Okay, and that itself puts me in a sweet spot. So that's why it's up to you, right? You say that.
Well, you
Then
just
when you
have a prediction. You have a prediction of
that's
what's
right,
going to happen,
you have a prediction,
and
and
that's going
when
to be
things
wrong.
yeah,
You,
and when things go wrong, then
yeah.
you say, okay, I think I need to expand the boundary. I need
Yep.
to study this too.
And you keep doing that best you can.
That's
Yeah.
it's all I'm with
And
you.
that's the optimum. There is no such thing as optimum. It's a transient optimum.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also like in physics a little bit, where the different levels have different things that are important. So at the particle level, for example, you can look at one element of particles interacting, you widen up, and now you can talk about temperature and millions of particles grouped together, and now you've got different things that are important. You're measuring temperature and pressure and things like that. I think that's something that we can learn from as well.
Oh yeah.
And as Dick said, Deming is really looking for learning. A system of profound knowledge is a methodology for learning.
Perfect.
And everything Deming talks about, in fact, he says when you're collecting data to understand what's going on in your organization, until you know what you're trying to learn, you don't know what data to collect.
Correct.
It's about learning.
Yep.
So
Everything.
all the data you have out there is fascinating, but having the data doesn't help you. You need to decide what you're trying to learn and collect the data that's going to help you learn.
I think Deming was pretty clear. As you quit after you learn it all.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm about ready to quit. No.
Okay. Sounds good. Good discussion. Thanks for putting it together,
Right.
Tim.
All right. So next week, thanks to you all. Thank you all for joining, and I'll get this partial recording uploaded when I get a chance.
Okay,
Yes.
sounds good. Take care.
Ciao.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Stop recording.